Hello everyone, this is Ajay Balamurugadas and welcome you all to the Step In Forum's first webinar of 2019. A quick check, can you hear me? You can type in the chat or let me unmute you all. Yeah, so I can see raised hands, so I'll take it as a positive. So we'll wait for few more minutes. While we are waiting, let me also check if you are able to see my screen. So though this is a webinar, I am open to taking questions anytime. Please do type it out or just raise your hands and I will attend to you. Once again, I welcome you all. So we have 5 attendees slowly increasing. So I'll just wait for few more minutes. So what are your expectations out of this webinar? If you can type it out. I've unmuted all. Okay, I see that Sandeep has mentioned analyze as well as synthesize requirements. Okay. Zaheda, Nabia, Anand, what are your expectations out of this webinar? Yeah, Anand, go ahead. Anand, you're not audible, though your mic is unmuted. I have unmuted all. Now it is left to the individuals to unmute themselves. Anand says, I would like to know how to get more clarity from the requirements and how to efficiently prove that the requirements are not clear. Okay. Sandeep, I think now you should be able to speak. Okay, one more quick question. Are you able to see my screen? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, I think it's a good time to start the presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, do type it out and we'll take it. We'll take it at the end of a logical point. So let's get started. And I'm going to close the GoToWebinar control panel. Good. So here it is. We are in the Step In Forum's first webinar for 2019, and it is Tips to Analyze Requirements Better. While I wrote this title, uh, something interesting struck me that some of you might have received an email saying tips to analyze requirement documents better. Some of you might have read it as tips to analyze requirements better. And there itself is a good starting point for us. Many of us confuse requirement document as the requirement. Now, if you think back carefully, there is a big difference between requirements and requirement documents. Requirement document is one form of representing the requirements. But if we consider requirement documents as the source of requirements, then we are missing out on a lot of valuable information. So with that clarification between requirement documents and requirements, let us move ahead and I'll quickly walk you through as what is in plan for today. So this is going to be a 40-45 minutes webinar and we'll open it for the forum for questions or any discussions, any comments. So here is a quick check on what is the individual score, what is the usual trend in the industry, the usual complaints against requirement documents, uh, requirements, and then the people who give us the requirements and stuff like that. Then testers need to ask questions. We all know that, but what kind of questions? How do we know when to stop, or have we asked the right questions or not? What is meant by active reading? How do we apply it to a requirement document? So an example of a requirement document and how do I analyze it? A few minutes on that. Uh, then we'll go on what are the different models one can make out of a requirement document. Um, so some points on that, the advantage, disadvantage of each of it, which is better in which context, things like that. Then a very strong topic, heuristics, personas, quality criteria, how are they related to requirements, requirement gathering, requirement analysis, and stuff like that. Then one of the models, heuristic test strategy model by James Buck, how can we apply this to our topic? Then finally, kind of a summary slide at the same time, some key points to discuss here. For example, Anand was saying, how do we get back? Saying requirement document is never clear. So we have that in our mind that requirement documents are never clear. So that what kind of biases do we have? What kind of biases do people have? And then finally some contact details, and then we'll open up for questions. Okay. So let's get started. Whenever we talk about requirement documents or requirements, there is this particular image which has uh, been discussed multiple times. How the customer explained it, how the project leader or the business analyst understood it, engineer or the developer designed it, wrote, how the sales executive described it, how did we market it, and stuff like that. What was the documentation level? How was the support system, the operations installed? How did they do it? Then how was the customer build? Uh, and then finally, how the help desk supported what actually the customer wanted. This might look like a joke, but at the same time, it has key points. I mean, we could discuss the whole entire 45 minutes on this image itself. It has so much of value in it if we pay close attention to what happens. For example, simple takeaway could be, if you if you just count the number of people involved in this project. So customer 1, project leader 2, engineer 3, programmer 4, sales team 5, maybe the documentation team 6, operations team 7, help desk 8. So if you see, there are at least 8 stakeholders involved in the project, right? Um, and you are well aware that even in your project, there could be more than 8 people, and each stakeholder has their own interpretation as well as expectation of a requirement. Now, if you go ahead and ask the support team, the customer support team, or the ones who are on the call with the customers, what are you most interested in, or what should this feature, how should this feature be? Their first answer could be, I don't want any customers calling me and asking how this feature works. It should just work. I don't want multiple calls explaining people how this feature works, right? Now, if you go ask a salesperson, he or she will say, uh, it should sell like hot cakes. People should not even bargain and just pay for the quality. You ask for the quality team, they'll say there should not be any bugs in this. Uh, all the bugs which we file should be fixed. The developer should say it should be easy to scale. The CEO should say that this should be the you know this should beat the competition by a huge margin, right? So each stakeholder has their own understanding and as well as expectation. And then you as the tester, how do you take care that all the expectations or all the interpretations are met? All you have could be a simple requirement document, but then how do you take care of all of these, if you can say, the implicit requirements? They are not stated explicitly, but they are all implicit requirements from the different stakeholders. How do you take care of them? How do you even understand, interpret those requirements, and then test the product according to those requirements? So analyzing requirements is an interesting challenge. Interesting because it is not straightforward. You don't have a single document and said, okay, go ahead, test it, analyze it, come up with your test scenarios, test cases, user stories, whatever, and then test it, file bugs. No, we all have been in projects where requirements are constantly changing. Even the first person or the customer or the business analyst who has designed that requirement uh, finds that there are better ways to represent the same requirement, right? But that comes after they have designed the first 2 or 3 drafts. It's not that just right at the start they have created the perfect requirement document, right? So with this interesting challenge and points to consider, let's have a quick poll. Um, all of us start with, say, score 0, and then in your case, if you have faced requirements keep changing, add 1. And you need, if you write all of these or any of these based on the requirements document, add 1 more, then your score will be 2. If you have found bugs in the requirement document itself, your score is 3, provided, right? So keep adding 1 if you agree to any of these lines, and then finally tell me what is your score, right? You can type it in the questions. Meanwhile, I see Zaheda asking, how does the more technical requirements be clear for a tester? Sure, we'll attend that as well. For now, you can go through these questions or these statements and keep adding one if you feel you have faced that. So there are like 5 points, the first 5 points. So add your score and then give me the final score. So Anand says 5, Zaheda says 2. Nabia says 3. Anyone with score 0? Sandeep, maybe test analyst 4. Okay. So all of this is quite common, right? I mean, seeing the scores, I can clearly say it's all quite common. Requirements keep changing. We are used to that. We need to write our test cases or the user stories or the test scenarios based on the documents. Sometimes we have also found bugs in the requirement documents, and the documents get updated and we are unaware. uh, Very challenging situation. You think you have the updated document, but no, you have like 2 weeks old document, and the product has been updated based on the latest document. After some time, the product gets updated, and the requirement documents doesn't get updated. It's the other way around now. The product is updated, but the requirement documents is like there's no time, and everyone is super busy. They are working on the product. People have forgotten the requirement documents. Quite natural. So how do we deal with all of these, right? Um, the first point and the fourth point we can clarify based on one simple question. Ask yourself, do I have the latest doc? Before working on any requirement document, ask yourself this question: do I have the latest document or not? If you feel, I mean, if you get the answer that no, you're not working on the latest document, big problem. Get it sorted. How do you get it sorted? Ask people who updates them and ask them to keep you in the loop, right? Quite possible. You are analyzing the requirement, you are responsible for testing, and someone else is responsible for requirement. First, find that person who is responsible or which team is responsible for updating the requirement. Then inform them, hey, can you please help me by including me whenever you give an update, or let me know where do you publish the document once it's updated. So you could like that page, you could follow that ticket and stuff like that. So make sure that you have the latest document, and also make sure that you are in the loop whenever the document gets updated. So this would take care of the problem that you are not aware of the latest document. Okay. Now, how do we deal with documents keep on changing? That we'll see in the future slides. But for now, first you should be in a position where you get the latest document. Okay. Now, next, the key problem people face with requirement documents changing is, oh, I need to rewrite everything. I need to redo my test cases. I need to spend another 3 days, coming up with test ideas and stuff like that. Now, think of it. If you have built a big house with all the floors, all the detailing done, and then someone comes and says, change the design, it is very hard. Agree? Now, instead of building the entire house with all the detailing, just build the blueprint. I mean, just draw the blueprint and keep it handy, right? don't build the house. Just keep the blueprint handy. If there is a design change, just change the blueprint. Now, how do you translate that to testing? Don't go ahead and write your detailed test cases. People usually write test cases at the start of the project, and that is exactly the time when they have the least knowledge of the product. Now, isn't that something funny? You know about the product, the minimum, but you're writing the maximum about your test cases at the time when you know the minimum. When do you know most about the project? While you are interacting with the product, while you are testing. So those are the times. Have a buffer for writing some of the cases at that point, because when you are testing, you definitely get new ideas. Now, if you say I'm not going to test those new ideas because I've not documented them before, then you are missing out. Customer will test, go through those particular scenarios and give you bugs, right? So instead of having your test cases so detailed that it takes a lot of time to modify, like writing it in Excel with like steps to reproduce, actual result, expected result, prerequisite, test data. Don't write so much. Just write 1 or 2 lines per case. It could be, say there are field validations, right? So just write field validations. That's it. Don't write this field shouldn't accept more than 10 characters. What if tomorrow instead of phone number they change Aadhaar number? Then it will be 12 digits, right? So then again you'll have to go and do a control F. Wherever there is a phone number, you'll have to change to Aadhaar number, all of that, right? So don't do that. Instead, what you do is um, just mention field validations. So whatever it is, either it is phone number, PAN card, Aadhaar number, you will do a field validation for that, right? Makes sense? You have covered that scenario, but then you have not spent so much time writing about it. Now you might ask, oh, what if I need to give this test cases to my clients? What if I need to give this test cases to my next tester? You can always do that once you are done with your testing or during the testing itself, right? Instead of redoing stuff, I'm giving you an example of having your documents lightweight so that when requirements keep changing, you can easily update your documents. We have found bugs in requirement documents. Fantastic. uh, that you're actually helping everyone by finding the bugs quite early in the cycle, right? So this is natural. You're doing a great job. Don't worry about it. The documents get updated and we are unaware. As I mentioned, the first and the fourth point are related. Just know who updates, know where do they update, and know how to get into the loop. After some time, the product gets updated and requirement documents doesn't get updated. File bug that the requirement document needs to be updated and put a person responsible for it. Okay. Now let's go uh, check out the next slide. So testers need to ask questions. It's a known thing. Now, how do you ask questions to a requirement document? Now, how do you know how many questions are enough? To be frank, there is no one magic number saying, oh, you need to ask 28 questions. No, there's no such magic number. If someone gives you a magic number in testing, uh, use it as a heuristic. Heuristic as in uh, it's a fallible way of solving a problem. Fallible as in which can fail, right? So don't trust numbers like that. Oh, your test cases should have 5 steps, not more than 5 steps. No, nothing like that. No one says, no one has a rule, no one has a standard there, right? If people have standards for it, they're just fooling you. So based on the project, your questions differ. Based on the projects, your number of questions differ. And how do you know which is the right set of questions? You ask your questions and you also ask one more question to the maybe the product owner or the business analyst. Hey, do you think I have missed any question? Do you think I should be asking few questions which I'm not yet asked? Do you think I'm asking questions more on a particular component or a particular way of thinking? I missed another way of thinking totally. Can you help me? And then there is this context-free questions by Michael Bolton. You can search for it. There are lots of questions which will help you in any context. Simple stuff like who is my client, who is the customer, who is the user, who is the stakeholder, how much time do I have, right? Who will use it? Are there tools which I need to use? Are there skills which I need to develop? Is my line of thinking correct? So there are multiple such questions in this particular link. So you can just Google for context free questions, Michael Bolton, and you'll get that blog post. Uh, there are some more questions which will help you give a lot more useful information. Say someone says a line, the system should authenticate user based on the documents provided. Suppose this is a requirement line, right? Now, what questions? So some of the questions, let's apply that to that particular requirement line. What documents? What authentication level, right? Why do we need to authenticate based on few documents? And why not based on, say, biometrics? What else is possible? What else is not possible? Where else will the same user be authenticated? How else are we authenticating the same user? Where are we storing the documents? So keep asking these questions. You never know which test idea will give you a bug, right? How long should we maintain the authentication token? How long should we maintain the validity, or how long is the authentication result valid, right? Things like that. And then, so first is your questioning skills. Next is something called as active reading. Now, what is active reading? Reading, you all know, it's like you read it and then you understand and then you leave it. Active reading is you actually interact with the document. For example, when I read a requirement document, I have different colored pens and different symbols um, for all of these. Say, if I read a line and I feel that it is like a note, I need to ensure that this works or this is taken care of, then I mark it as N for against it. So that becomes my notes. Suppose I have a question on a particular line, I put a Q against it, meaning it is that is a question for me. I need to ask questions for that. I have a question there, right? Suppose a line requirement line gives me a test idea. I get an idea for testing, so I put as I for test idea. Say that one more line gives me an idea for a test data. Saying, for example, it says hmm, test for different pin codes. So immediately I know I need to have a list of different pin codes. So there is an opportunity for me to have test data. So I put it, hey, I need test data here. Only then I'll be able to test this particular requirement line better. So I'll mark it as TD. And sometimes I would, as people have mentioned, they're able to find bugs in the requirement document itself. And when I find such bugs, I just mark it as B, right? So my requirement document, when I take a printout and when I've analyzed, it's full of these letters N, Q, I, T, D, B, all of this, right? You never know which section is notes, which section is question, unless you read it and you interact with the document, right? So, and then finally, when I finish that entire document, you consolidate as per the sections. You copy paste all the notes under notes. You write all your questions under the question sections. You search for all the I's in the document, and those are your ideas. May put it under the ideas section in the document. So then what you can do is you can consolidate all the Q's. Sorry, you can consolidate all the Q's, the questions, and ask to the product owner. You can consolidate all the I's and then brainstorm along with your testing team. You can consolidate all the test data and then talk to the toolsmith in your team, or you yourself can prepare the test data. can consolidate all the B's and then file those. You can consolidate all the N's and keep questioning those N's. So interact with the document. That is very important. So just reading the document versus active reading with the document is very different. And I would suggest you actively read the document. Make notes on the document. So let's see how we apply this approach. This is an example of a requirement document. So I just went to Google and searched for Google Photos help, and I get this first page where this is the document. So it says, okay, computer, Android, iPhone, and iPad. So in the computer section, it says, learn how to use Google Photos with this step-by-step guide. Some things you will learn. Okay, how to search your photos. Now, immediately my question is, okay, computer, you said, is it a web or is it a desktop application, right? How to search your photos? How do you um authenticate that these photos are my photos? And what kind of search is possible? So even when a simple word like search, I ask questions like, what kind of search is possible? How many characters can I search? First three characters, and then only then you start displaying the search results. Do I need to press the enter key and then you will start displaying the search results, or it is like as and when I type you display the search results, right? Uh, is it a partial text match you will display? Will you suggest me the suggestions, related text, all of it? How many lines I have analyzed so far? Maybe one and two, right? How many questions I've got? Maybe 10 questions, right? Photos. What are the file formats? Now, for example, you will say, okay, what are the file formats for photos? JPG, PNG, BMP, GIF. So I'll show you an example. I go to things like fileinfo.com, and in the fileinfo.com, I'll search for the different file types and file types of, we were talking about images, right? So here there are 3D images files, raster images, vector images, camera raw images. Any other image do you see? No, right? Okay, so let's click on 3D images. So these are also images, right? So will these file extensions work, right? Okay, now these are my questions to the product owners. Now camera raw images. So this is also Canon camera company, Canon raw CIFF image file. So CRW is supported or not supported, right? So what about these images? Now let's go back and say, what are we used to? We are used to say the vector images. These, and we still don't see our usual JPG, all of it, right? So we'll go back and we'll say, what are the common file types? So audio files, video files, image files. Here you get your raster image files. So people know like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, and say GIF, like five files, file formats, and then they say, okay, we have tested for all the file formats. No, you, like, as you saw, there are more than 50 file formats. Now I'm not asking you to test for all those 50, but ensure that are those 5 file formats is what the product owner thought of, or are there more? That is the question you need to ask, right? What are the supported file formats? So, okay, let's go to step one, open photos, openphotos.google.com. So it's a computer, okay. On which browser? So it doesn't mention, right? What if it is not supported on IE? What if it's not supported on Safari, right? What if it's supported only on the latest versions of Firefox and Chrome? Unless you ask, you will be testing on the say the version installed on your computer. The customer will be using on the version on their computer, and thereby your first customer reported bug comes up. Have I interacted with the product yet? No. But even with just the requirement document, you can find bugs. Not bugs with the requirement document as such, but with the product itself. Now here is a bug in the understanding itself. The developer could have interpreted as, okay, open this on the default browser, right? And everyone has, say, for example, IE installed, everyone has Chrome installed. That could be the assumption that you need to test, right? Sign into your Google account. What if I don't have a Google account? Is there any other way? These are the questions you need to ask. Now this, so as I told, we have hardly gone through like 5 or 6 lines, but we have asked like 20 questions by now. What happens if I don't have a Google account? Will I be able to access this, or will you prompt me to create a Google account, or is there any other way to log in? What if I had a Google account and it is now inactive? What if Google has blocked my account? What if I don't have permission to access photos.google.com? What if I have a Google business account? Will I get the same features as a normal Google account, a free Google account, right? Okay, find photos fast. Fast compared to what? When you open Google Photos, you will see all the photos and videos on your device. Now, is computer also a device, or are you meaning a mobile phone? And if you turned on backup and sync, anything else sync to your Google Photos library. So anything else sync to my Google Photos library, I should be able to see on my device. Is that the understanding? Okay, now this is interesting. You talk about photos here, then you mention about videos here. So should I also talk about, will I be able to even search my videos here, right? Sometimes bugs become features. This could be one instance. And where do I turn up the backup and sync? Maybe if I click here, I will get the details, instructions. By default, what is the setting for backup and sync? What if I am on a low data network? Will you take care of that? What if I have a low space, disk space? Will you take care of that? What if I am signed into 10 devices at the same time? I'm working on say, I am an IT admin. I interact with so many people. I'm responsible for like mobile device management at my company. So I have my Google account on every device as a backup. So will you sync my photos on all those devices? Right? Questions like this. Is there an option that I can sync the photos on few devices and stop on others? Right? Same way, find photos. So if I had the pen and I was supposed to, they say this was a printout, what I would write is, I'd put say these are the features to be tested. So I'd mark a F here. Then I would say here I would put a Q. Um, I would say, okay, sorry, I'd put a Q here, and the question would be which browser version. Here again, there would be a Q saying, okay, what if I don't have a Google account, and all the questions I asked, I'd put it here. And here you'll see all the photos and videos. Here I'd put a test idea, test data. So I'd now go and search for lot of photos of different formats, different size, different resolutions, and stuff like that. On your device, how do you authenticate which is my device, right? So maybe I need to have a discussion with the developer here and things like that. So this is just one page, and I've spent like 10 minutes, and I've come up with like maybe 10 questions, 2 ideas for test data, 5 notes, and stuff like that. So this is active reading, which I described earlier. So this is what I expect, or I suggest you folks to do with your requirement documents. And then one of you mentioned that if the document is technical enough, how do we as testers understand it? By asking questions. Say for example, you um, say instead of search, it was like how to fork your photos. So you don't understand what is fork, no problem. Put a Q here. Go ask, what is fork? Can you give me an example of fork? What is not forking? Can you give me an example of that? Right? So you talk. Unless you talk here in the requirement stage, what will happen is everyone will assume that you have understood this, and then they would expect you to test it. And when you are testing, if you ask questions, it's already too late, right? So ask questions in the requirement. Ask them to give a demo of it. Ask them to explain it to you. Ask them to draw it. Ask them to explain as if you are a 5-year old, right? No problems in that. It's okay to be a fool for like 5 minutes than a fool for a lifetime, right? Think about it. So what are the different models you can create when you interact with a requirement document? One is map it out. Create a mind map. Whatever you read, you create a mind map out of it. Okay, then you will be able to understand, oh, this node interacts with that node. Hey, these two nodes look similar, right? Stuff like that. Let me just have a quick check. Any questions there? No questions. Okay. Okay, try to create a data flow. How does the data flow through this entire product? Where does the data start? Where is the data creation? I mean, like, which is the first instance of a data being entered into this product? For example, a account being created. Okay, what is the lifespan of that particular account? What is the life cycle of a entity? Here an entity could be a user, in this case Google Photos. A photo can be an entity, a Google account can be an entity. What is the life cycle of that particular entity, right? Create the data flow. Do you understand when you click on particular button, which all other buttons get activated, or where does the data flow in the database? What happens, right? Think on those lines. Product outline. Can you map out the entire product on a like a hierarchy level, saying okay, this component interacts with this component, the component A feeds data into component B, component C reads data from component A, component D and E activate based on whether component C gets data or not. So can you write all of it, right? Focus on the entire system as a whole, right? Don't focus on just Google Photos as a component. Focus on the entire system. Okay, what if I have a banned YouTube channel, my account is blocked because I have exceeded or I have violated one of the Google terms and policies, but I use the same account for Google Photos. So here you're talking about the whole system. And then again focus on a single component, uh, like focus only on the Google Photos, right? So it's like contrasting ideas. Once you dive in once, then again you come out and stuff like that, right? So focus on the entire system, focus on a single component, right? um, Now, another interesting thing is heuristics, personas, and quality criteria. So when we talk of heuristics, as I told, it's a fallible way of solving a problem. One of the heuristics for requirement analysis, people say, is Mary had a little lamb. This is by Jerry Weinberg, who is no more now. Um, so what does it say is emphasize each word, and then try to get what meaning, try to see what meaning do you get from that. For example, Mary had a little lamb, not Mohan, not Raj, right? So there you start thinking about the gender. Mary had a little lamb, so it's not about she has, she had. So it's like the time, or no, it's about the current state, the different states of the entities. Mary had a little lamb, so it's not like Mary had hundreds of lambs, right? She had a little lamb, one single. So it's about the quantity and stuff like that. Mary had a little lamb, so it's little when you say it's like the quantity, quality, the size and stuff like that. So think of, okay, how does it relate to your requirement document? For example, your requirement document talks about proxy. um, so we say apply this particular logic there, right? So it's like, okay, They should be all traffic should go through proxy. All traffic should go through proxy. What does all mean, right? Then all traffic, how do you define traffic here? What constitutes traffic? What is not traffic? Even some other application uh, interacts with the network, right, or passes information via the network, even that should go through this proxy, or it's specific to a particular application, right? And things like that. So you analyze the key statements, emphasize on different words and try to get different meanings, and then check if everyone has the same understanding on it, right? Think of different personas is like your regular user is one persona, a hacker is one more persona, someone who doesn't use your product is also one persona, your competitor is also a persona. Think how will they use the product, how will they interact with the requirement document, how will they interpret your requirement document. So when you say all traffic, your hacker will say, why should I send all my traffic through your proxy, right? Whereas your competitor will say, okay, you send it at what speed? Let me analyze that. Then you think of, oh, okay, what is the usual speed, maybe, right? Things like that. So think of different personas. If you have not created or even not even thought of your personas for your product, you're thinking in one dimension. You're thinking like yourself. That's it. But if you think like, okay, how would an old person react with it? How would a challenged person interact with my product? How would someone who's maybe a scientist interact with my product? How would a child interact with my product? How would a hacker interact with my product? How would a government personnel interact with my product? How would an regulatory body interact with my product? Think on those lines. Then you'll get interesting ideas. And testing is all about questioning the product, and then you evaluate it, as James Bach says, right? So if your questions are strong, if you can think of good test ideas, then your tests would be strong. Once your tests are strong, the bugs will come out dancing in front of you, right? So all, if you can think well, you can test well. That's my line. All you have to do is focus on your thinking. And to think, you need to think in a variety of ways. You need to think different users, diverse users. You need to think deep. You need to think practical. You need to think quick. That's the Pradeep heuristic, Q Pradeep heuristic, right? Quick, practical, deep. Uh, so, and beware of interpretations. For example, you would have faced things like this. You would have told your colleague, "Why did you close the window?" The colleague might have interpreted, "Why did you close the window?" You could have closed the door. Why did you close the window? Whereas you would have meant, "Why did you close the window?" It's not your job, right? There are multiple interpretations. English is a funny language, and unfortunately or fortunately, all the requirements are written in English, right? And that's where you get all of this. Beware of interpretations. Pay attention to keywords like the, should, always, never, must, can, should. For example, the problem is it the problem or is it a problem? It's called the a versus the heuristic, right? So um, yeah, Sandeep just distracted me by putting the quote on a WhatsApp group. Okay, or rather I got distracted, right? So see, the same line, two different interpretations. Sandeep distracted, I got distracted, right? Sandeep didn't intend to distract me, I got distracted. So that's where how you interpret, how you talk, how you communicate is so important. So I was talking about A versus the heuristic. Should, the proxy should. What do you mean by should? What if it doesn't? What would happen, right? You keep asking such questions. And and don't restrict yourself to one quality criteria, right? People are so focused on automation and say functional testing, they forget usability, they forget accessibility, they forget performance, right? And then finally they say, oh, I need something, some extra time for doing this, right? Instead, if you are a quality person, you are a tester, software tester, you think on all these dimensions. Given a requirement line, you would think, okay, from a usability perspective, how is this applicable? From a performance dimension, how is this applicable? From a security perspective, how is this applicable, right? Where how will it affect in terms of maybe accessibility? And that's where you would find the bugs right in the requirement document itself. So this is a fantastic test strategy model. It's a 4-page document. It should be 4 or 5-page document. So use it, build on it. It talks about the project environment, the quality criteria, the different product elements, and finally how it affects your test techniques, and then finally how you can tell the testing and quality story, right? Which tests to choose for testing. This strategy model will help you. Go use it. There are examples of uh, people using or applying this model to their testing, right? Go ahead and use it and then build on it. I mean, don't just follow any model or anything blindly, build on it. And finally, remember, as Jerry Weinberg says, all problems are people problems. Communication is key. If someone updates the requirement document, you are not aware of it, it's simple communication problem. Go talk to them. If they don't listen, that could be because someone else must have told something that, like, okay, these people are there to spoil our product or find more bugs. They are, it's all communication problem. Just talk, sort it out, right? And if you feel writing a requirement document is easy, go design a requirement document for a simple feature. Don't even take your product. Think of a simple feature like, okay, I will design a requirement document for a call log feature, and then you will understand the pain behind creating one. I was a product manager, or like I was responsible for creating wireframes for one of the projects for like 2 3 months. It was a humbling experience. I realized how difficult it is. I covered most of the scenarios I can think of as a tester, uh, but then it would come up with some other bugs. It would lead some other bugs. Then I had to stop it, right? So try that out and use requirement document as one of the sources and not as the source, as I told, as A versus the problem. Keep your notes and deliverables lightweight so that when changes happen, it is easy to update it, and spend more time interacting with the product rather than writing your test cases and documents. When there is a difference between the map and the territory, map is your requirement document and territory is your product, always trust the product. Pay attention to, see, here is a bug. Pay attention to both implicit, explicit, and hidden requirements. So both is for like 2, right? I've written 3 here. And do talk to various stakeholders. Each of them have their own understanding and interpretation and expectation of stuff, right? Of things. So talk to them. And here is my contact details. Um, I'm I'll be more than happy to discuss more about this. Here, this is my blog, and this is the latest book I've written. It's 50 mistakes of my software testing career. I hope I have been able to, talk about some key things with requirement analysis, how to analyze them, how to use the different models. I gave a demo of how I'd analyze based on active reading. Heuristic test strategy model, HTSM, is wonderful. Use it. Talk to people. The last slide, the summary slide, is again key. These one, right? So I think now we have few minutes left. Let's take up questions. Okay, there's a lot of questions. User stories based on requirements document. I did not understand this. Okay, some people might write user stories based on a document. Some product might give in, say, PPT. Someone might create a user story based on it for automation or something like that. As a user, as a this, I want to do this, right? Things like that. What does more technical requirements? Be clear, question it, talk to it, ask people to demo it, you explain your understanding and let people correct it. But what if you don't have enough time to update test cases later? Now, something interesting here, right? You need to ask yourself, and the entire team should answer this. What is important, testing the product or test cases being updated? Think about it. Your test cases is like 95% pass, but there are like 10 critical bugs open. Will people worry about pass percentage or your bugs? But then again, it's like, as you say, you balance it out. You try out what works, but then don't spend. Say if you're spending 5 hours today to write your test cases based on the requirements document, spend maybe 3 hours and use that 2 hours later. But what if you don't have enough time? That's when you try it out, you'll know, okay, maybe how can I update it regularly, right? Okay. How can the complex requirements can be easily understood? Break the complexity. Talk to people. Ask them, why is it complex, right? And maybe sometimes it could be a skill issue. For example, if there is a requirement document on artificial intelligence, maybe I don't understand it as of now, but then I'll use my questioning skills to dig deeper, question it, and then get answers, right? I'll try to break it down, things like that. Okay, any more questions? Zaheda, sometimes people are not willing to document, like PM and design engineer in another location who is in touch with customers, saying we are process light team. Let's talk through the changes if really necessary rather than document it. My question is, should we insist on documenting the requirements? Not necessary. If they are process light, yeah, let them be. An easy example could be, say after the call you write an email saying, as per our discussion over the call, here is what I have understood, please correct me if I am wrong. And that becomes your lightweight document. And then after 2 months someone says, no, this is not how it was supposed to work, you refer back to that email saying, hey, you know what, if you look back at this email thread, this is how we understood, right? You don't insist on anything on anyone, right? If they're not ready to do it, then maybe one example is, try to do a POC and then explain by documenting as per your way how it is helpful. If they are not understanding it, maybe they'll never understand. So then maybe you try their approach. Write an MOM after that call saying, okay, hey, you know what, we discussed and here it is. And this is circulated to everyone. We'll take it as a uh, rule. Any other questions? Okay. Requirement synthesization. To be frank, I don't understand what is synthesization, but then this is how I would try it. I would go here, I would say define synthesization, and it says, oops, it says to form by combining parts or elements, opposed to analyze, to combine into a single or unified chemical entity. Okay, so then I would go here and put requirements synthesization and remove this. I would see if someone else has done it. I have been asked to synthesize. Okay, combine elements of several sources to help you make a point. If you're breathing, you're synthesizing. It's simply a matter of making connections or putting things together. We synthesize naturally to help others see the connections between things. Okay, actually, if you see, models does the exact thing. By creating a model, you're targeting different components of the system and bringing it together, which is actually making connections or putting things together, right? um, Say this particular requirement for Google Photos says you need a Google account, whereas requirement document for say Google Maps says you don't need a Google account. So testers are those who know that things can be different. They point out all the difference, right? They know that things can be different, and then they point out when things are different, so you can point out stuff like that. So I would say synthesizing is looks like similar to modeling, and then connecting the models, I said, that is more important, right? I wish I could unmute you all. I'm trying it out, but then it just doesn't happen. Okay, any other questions? You do have my contact details, and yeah, so this is important. We do have the upcoming summit in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Delhi. So do visit the website stepinforum.org. Stepin Summit is which happens in Bangalore. There are trainings. You can get in touch with Verity Software, and you'll learn a lot, right? And I'm also part of Stepin Forum. So there is call for speakers for Delhi conference. Do Actually, there's call for speakers for all the conferences: Delhi, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore. Apply. Okay, good. And you have my contact details. You can ping me anytime. And thanks for your time. It's been lovely discussing about requirement documents, requirements. So, any final questions, or else we'll wrap it up. Thank you. Good. Thanks a lot. And then, so I think it's been a lovely Saturday evening discussing about requirement documents. It has given me new ideas. Um, so maybe every month we'll have a webinar and a meetup. Hope to see you all there. And no questions. Cool. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a lovely weekend ahead. Thank you. Bye.